Hi guys, if I were to say that Nigel Farage is a dishonest individual, well, it wouldn't exactly be news, would it? So I wanted to share with you this story. Nigel Farage defends allowing US chlorinated chicken into UK as part of trade deal. So this is from The Guardian. It goes on to say, Nigel Farage has defended allowing labelled chlorinated chicken from the US into the UK as part of a trade deal, as a poll suggests his Reform UK party could be on course to take the highest number of seats at a general election. Speaking before the local elections in England on the 1st of May, Farage said British consumers already ate chicken from places such as Thailand, reared in poor conditions, and accepted chlorine-washed lettuce. He told the Sunday Times, if you have a look at the chicken we're currently importing from Thailand, you look at the conditions they've been reared in, and that every single bag of pre-made salad in every single supermarket has been chlorinated. Once those basics have been accepted, I'll have a debate with you. Asked how he would prevent British chicken farmers being undercut by cheap products from the US, he said, I want to promote British farming as being a high-end product. I think the growth of farmers' markets, they have been much more disconcerted audience. They are a much more disconcerted audience that want to know where their meat comes from. I don't think British farmers have anything to fear from this in the long term. Okay, well, we could ask Liz Webster about that. Now, what Farage is trying to say here is, look, chlorinated chicken from the US is not all that different from chicken coming from Thailand. Look at the conditions in Thailand. What have you to worry about? There are two things here. First is standards, and the second is imports. So import checks. So now that the UK is no longer a member of the European Union, it doesn't have the EU standards. The EU imports a huge amount of chicken from Thailand, but it enforces strict controls. It has very high standards and very strict controls. Now, the UK is no longer a member of the European Union, so it doesn't have the EU standards. Let's park Northern Ireland for a moment, because that could be a problem. But let's say, for the sake of argument, the UK decides, look, we're going to import a lot of stuff from Thailand, or we're already importing stuff from Thailand. If it's following EU standards, then that isn't a problem. But it has to be checked. If the UK is not enforcing checks and saying, look, we're not going to allow you just to dump whatever you want into our country, then that's going to be a problem. So what Farage is trying to do here is suggest that, well, if it's coming from Thailand, and look at the pictures of the conditions in Thailand, well, that means why should you have a problem with stuff coming from America? See, in 2003, the EU imposed a ban on chicken coming from Thailand. You can see here, this is from 2012. It says here, the European Union has said that it will lift import restrictions on poultry meat from Thailand on the 1st of July, 8 years after they were imposed due to an outbreak of avian influenza. So the EU said, look, we're going to ban chicken coming from Thailand. That was from 2003. And then they lifted the restriction in 2012 because what happened? Well, Thailand said, what we're going to do is we're going to eradicate avian flu within our country, and we're going to increase our standards. So the EU said, well, if you meet our standards, then you can sell your goods into our market. And the same applies to the UK if the UK sets a high standard. So what Farage is once again doing is he's trying to say, well, look at, if it's coming from Thailand, the standard is automatically low, which is misleading the public. The standard is whatever the importing country sets. The EU sets a high standard. Thailand, if it wants to sell into the EU, has to meet that standard. If it doesn't meet the standard, then the products will not be allowed in, or there will be restrictions. If the UK imposes a high standard, then it will protect its farming industry and it will protect consumers. Farage is trying to use fear of chlorinated chicken from the US and say that, well, it's just the same as, there's nothing to be fearful about because we're already importing stuff from Thailand, for example. But if you're importing stuff from Thailand and you're not carrying out checks, that's a different problem. If you're importing stuff from Thailand and you don't have a high standard, that's another problem. Farage has been dishonest here. He's trying to equate imports from the US with imports from Thailand and saying, look, the conditions in Thailand are terrible. Yes, in some situations they are, but that the meat produced in those terrible conditions is not being allowed into the EU, for example. So if the UK was still a member of the European Union, there'd be nothing to worry about here. But there is a real concern for chlorinated chicken coming into the UK market because it will undermine British farming. And if you don't believe me, ask Liz Webster from Save British Farming about that.